afternoon. Welcome back to the AI engineering class, looking at machine learning, and today we're going to introduce you guys to MLOps, or what you call machine learning operations, and API fundamentals. So I have a file here that I've created, which I will break down. So don't worry, we'll go through this code to explain what's going on. But before we do that, let's define a few terms. Like, first of all, what is MLOps, or what you call machine learning operations? So MLOps, or machine learning operations, is a set of practices that aims to deploy and maintain machine learning models in production reliably and efficiently. So it combines machine learning, DevOps, and data engineering. Here are some of the reasons why we use APIs for MLOps. One is model serving, to expose machine learning models as web services. Scalability, to handle multiple requests simultaneously. Integration, to connect with other systems and applications. Versioning, which is to enable make different model versions, and monitoring, to track model performance and usage. For some of the terminologies, for example, API, what I've been talking about. API stands for Application Programming Interface, and an API is a set of rules allowing different software applications to communicate. We have a term called REST. It's something like this. So we've just defined API. Now we're looking at REST. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. It's the architectural style for designing networked applications. Then we have what we call an endpoint. So an endpoint is a specific URL where an API receives requests. And then we'll be looking also at HTTP methods. Now, HTTP methods include these are the HTTP methods. We have get, which is used to retrieve information, post, which is used to create, put, which is used to update information, and then delete, which is to remove. So almost similar to what we were looking at when we were covering SQL or SQL. You'd have things like create, drop, delete, update, that kind of thing, but these are HTTP methods. And then lastly, another terminology is what we call JSON, which stands for JavaScript Web Object Notation. And basically JavaScript Object Notation, or JSON, is a lightweight data interchange format. That's as easy as I can explain those. Right, so today, like I said, I won't be looking at MLOps and API fundamentals, but we're going to be looking also, well, mainly at FastAPI for MLOps. So the FastAPI basics and the setup. So FastAPI setup and basic concepts. So why FastAPI for MLOps? Because of high performance. It's built on Starlet and Pydantic, and also for fast development, because automatic documentation and validation, type hints, that is Python type checking for better code quality, and then asynchronous support or async support to handle concurrent requests efficiently. So like I said, what you're seeing here on the screen, this code, is a basic FastAPI application structure. So because of the interest of time, I pre-wrote it or pre-coded it, but I'm going to break down what's happening here. But first, I didn't fill in this because I wanted you guys to see as I do it. So we have to create a requirements file to, so that we can install some of these libraries like you're seeing here. So our requirements.txt file will need FastAPI version and UV1, Pydantic, So yeah, after setting up our requirements file, before I install it, let me just break down what's happening on this code. So this is obviously the import section. Hmm? This is the input section, and we have FastAPI. So from FastAPI, we're importing FastAPI and HTTP exception. Now, the FastAPI is a main class to create the API instance, and then the HTTP exception is for raising HTTP errors with specific status codes. And then from Pydantic, we have imported the base model. So this is for the base model is the Pydantic class base. Sorry, is a Pydantic base class for data validation. And then these, I believe you're familiar with. We've been working with them while we've been looking at machine learning in the past few months. Before we go to this, basically before we go to where we are today. So pandas and numpy, that's for data manipulation and numerical operations. Job library for serving and loading machine learning models. Yeah. So from there we configure a login. Where were we? Yeah, line 16 to 18, configure login. So what that does basically imports Python's built-in logging module. Let me see, did I? Yeah, import logging here from line 11. And why it's needed is because it provides logging functionality without external dependencies. So the word logging there is part of Python standard library. So if you check our requirements file, you won't see anything like logging there. So we don't need to install, or no pip install needed. It contains classes and functions for flexible logging systems. It's used for tracking events that occur when the software runs. And then this line here configures the root logger with basic settings. Why it's needed is it sets up the foundation for all logging in our application. And then, of course, this basic config parameters. Level is equal to logging.info. The purpose is there, it sets the minimum severity level that will be tracked. So these are some of the, I'm going to mention some of the logging levels hierarchy. We have debug 10, which is a detailed diagnostic information. Info 20, confirmation that things are working as expected. Warning 30, something unexpected happened, but the application continues. Error 40, serious problem, the function failed. Then critical 50, program may not continue running. So yeah, when we run this file, we'll expect to see something like level 20 or level 30, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, so just want to. And then the logger is equal to logging get logger name. What it does is it creates a named logger instance for the current module. What it's needed is it provides structured, organized logging with context. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Now then, we initialize the FastAPI application from there. So all this is application initialization. In explanation, it creates the FastAPI application instance with metadata. So you can see there's a title, the description, version. I'll begin explaining from here. Docs URL docs, or docs URL is equal to /docs. So it enables automatic Swagger UI documentation. And then redoc URL is equal to /redoc, enables the alternative redoc documentation. And then from there, the pydantic models for data validation. So from here up to here, we've defined expected structure of input data, automatic validation of data types and structure, and then it provides example values for API documentation. So these are the example values for API documentation. Then from there, there's a startup event handler here. Yeah, so saying this is a startup event handler. Up here at up on event startup is a decorator that runs the function when the app starts. So it loads or trains model before accepting requests, and then ensures the model is ready when API receives first request. And then we have a function to load that model. That's from here. From here. And yeah, so this is the function to load the model. So in explanation, it tries to load the pre-trained model first. Yeah. Load existing model or train a new one. So it first tries to load the pre-trained model first, and then if it's not found, it trains a new model and then saves it. So that's how we have that try and accept method here. Then uses job leap for efficient model serialization. See, then saves the model and then uses job leap for efficient model serialization. So turn model. Now after that we have the prediction endpoint. sorry. Okay. So yeah, after saving the model, these parts here where I'm saying up, get, up, these are the first API route handlers. So saying this get, post. If you remember the HTTP, methods that we mentioned. Yeah. So for this part here, up get, response, model, dictionary. Let me first explain. Okay, the first. So for that one, up get, then the forward slash and quotes, response model dictionary. What it does is it's a decorator that defines a get endpoint at the root URL, the root URL being the forward slash, and why it's needed is it creates the API main entry point that users see first. The breakdown of the decorator parameters, where you have at. So the at symbol is a Python decorator syntax, which modifies the function that follows. Then app is the first API application instance created earlier. And then get specifies the HTTP get method, which is, if you remember, the get method is to retrieve data. The forward slash in quotes is the route path. So the route path of the API is usually something like HTTP, full colon, forward, double forward slash, then localhost, something like that. So if it were, let's say forward slash hello, the URL would be HTTP localhost, then the port number being like 8000, then forward slash hello. Then this part here, response model dictionary, the purpose is it tells the first API to validate that the return value matches dictionary structure. The benefit: automatic API documentation and client generation. Validation: it ensures response has correct shape. And then here, async define route. What it does, it defines an asynchronous function to handle requests. Why asynchronous? It's because it allows handling multiple requests concurrently without blocking. The async keyword makes the function asynchronous, which can use wait. First API can handle many requests simultaneously, particularly useful for I/O operations, which are like database call or file reading. Then define route. The function name can be any valid Python name. So for convention, you use descriptive names like root, health check, get users. The root endpoint providing API information. What it does is it's docstring that becomes API documentation. It's important because it appears in Swagger UI and redoc automatically. Then we have the return statement. This is the return statement. It's a message, iris class, application, API, model version. endpoints, docs, health, predict, bash, predict. So the message is human readable, API description. The version is the API version from global variable. And the endpoints is the dictionary mapping endpoint names to their paths. So when we visit the URL, like let's say when we run this, we'll expect sort of JSON response body where it will give us some of these things, but the version will also be a bit different. Yeah, so that's what's happening with these API route handlers. So it's the same with this one, only here we're getting the health response, and for this one, instead of getting, we're actually posting things there, like we're putting, instead of getting information, we're putting information. Sorry, let me. So app, then post, then in the predict endpoint, and then we start putting in this. Yeah. So as I was saying, this app post predict, yeah, and then in brackets, or rather response model is equal to prediction response, creates a post endpoint at the predict URL. Response model is equal to prediction response, validates the response structure. Yeah, this validates the response structure, and then converts features to NumPy array for model input, and then returns prediction with confidence scores. You can see in our return we have a confidence score as well as a prediction. It's the same here, same thing is happening here, except that it's in the batch predict URL. And then of course here we are not posting information, we are getting information. So 8000 is the default port number. So let's run and test this API. Remember, first we need to install some of the requirements. So there are two methods you can use to start the server. The main one, or the most common one, is this. So you can see we have an error here. Let me first break that. Try again. So I'm trying this again, but I have a feeling it's a version issue. The type of my version of Python is preventing some of these too. So I think I'll have to create a virtual environment. Yep, again. So let me find another alternative. Everything has become stubborn. We'll pick it up from here on Monday. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in.